Welcome to our next full out chat. I am your host, Steve Solberg, and we are going to bring in one of the most well-known athletes in our history, really, of cheerleading. Super excited to talk to Whitney Love today. She's been a guest on our USA Coed episode before. Everybody has heard of Whitney. They know of all the unbelievable stuff she has accomplished and the great athlete that she is. But I think there's people out there that don't really know all of her story. And so I'm excited to hear her story. So before we get to that, like every coach says, let's do it one more time and let's go full out.
Are you ready? Full out chat. You know what time it is.
F-U-L-L-O-U-T. We got control, we got the right, we got the vision, you lose the sight. We will never stop. What? We got the drop, yeah.
What time is it? Full out. We're live in 5, 6, 7, 8.
With the music, we are full out, and let's get Whitney Love to join. I saw her earlier. I see her now. There she is.
Hi.
Whitney, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. How's everything?
That's good. Just
Good.
working.
Yeah.
I'm at the gym right now.
Awesome. I know that you're fitting us in here before you have practice later over at the gym. So again, I appreciate you being here today and sharing your story. I'm super excited to hear it.
Me too. I'm excited to share it,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, so many people. I mean, you and really your whole family have grown up like in the spotlight of cheerleading pretty much your whole life. And I know I've heard some awesome stories from Mark Coleman when he used to coach you way back in the day, and and so. But I just don't know if people really know your story, your family story and your background and how you got to where you are. And so I'm just excited to hear your story and give you a platform to share that story.
Yeah, thank you for letting me. I'm excited.
Well, I mean, like I ask everybody, kind of just start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? How did you get into cheerleading? I think that's kind of an obvious answer, but obviously you want to hear about it. And then kind of just, what brought you eventually to kind of, where you are today in terms of, an all-around great cheerleader.
Well, thank you. I guess, so I started out in gymnastics in Lexington, Kentucky. That's where I'm born and raised. My whole family is from Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I did gymnastics until I was about maybe like 11 or 12. But around 8 years old, we got involved in cheerleading because my brother cheered at a place called Kentucky Elite his junior and senior year of high school. And they brought Brittany and I in there. And they were like, do you want to join our Pee Wee squad? We're like, yeah, Dad. Back then it was just called Pee Wee. So I remember doing that routine. My first competition was at the Louisville Slugger Field. So it was Jam Fest Louisville Slugger way back when, yeah. And I remember being out there. I think it rained every year basically that we were there. But after that, my mom, so she ran the gymnastics gym that we were in. And then from there, we went and merged with a gym called Kentucky Elite.
Mm-hmm.
So our gymnastics gym ended up becoming, Kentucky Elite Gymnastics. And so my mom always tells the story that one day she was like watching a cheerleading routine and realized the need for like a good, safe tumbling instruction in the field. So she decided to like piece out gymnastics, and then we went full cheerleading. So ever since then, I mean, we definitely just kept cheering in Lexington. We went, to a couple of gyms just growing up. It was owning a gym is hard in general, but there were some things that were, pros and cons. And so it led us in different areas and whatnot. But we ended up, for my last 2 years, we ended up back at Kentucky Elite. And then in 2010, that's when I won Worlds for the first time with Kentucky Elite Cats. So I was lucky to be able to do that with like Brittany and a lot of my best friends and stuff. I was a junior in high school then. And I think in that routine, I threw like a 2 to full double. But ended up after that, I just started like working on everything. That's kind of when I posted the first video of my standing double. It was off of a rod floor. It was like, I mean, the resi was like really far down. And I was on the panel mat. And I landed it and I posted it and people were like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. I had no idea that it was like as cool as it was. I was like, oh, okay. Not on the floor. It's definitely off the rod floor. But after that, I just kept working on tumbling and ended up achieving a whole lot of stuff as far as like skills and everything goes. Then my freshman year of college, I went to Oklahoma State and cheered on Twist and Shout Obsession. So for my super senior year, 11, 12, and then cheered at Oklahoma State on Large Coed from 2011 through 2016, where I won 4 national championships and then did some USA runs within there, some Class 6 runs since then. And now I moved back home. So I'm living in Lexington, and I commute to Louisville, and I work with U of L Coed, and then I coach some of the all-star teams here at Gym Time. So.
For those of us, those of you joining us here, we are here with Whitney Love, and she just basically gave her whole life story in about 3 seconds. But we're gonna go in a little bit more detail in terms of kind of how you got into it and everything. Now, if you have any questions for Whitney, at the bottom of the screen, you're gonna see it looks like a deck of cards with a question mark. Tap on that question mark, send me some questions, and if we have time later, we will get some questions out to Whitney. And so again, if you have any questions for Whitney, feel free to send them to us. Now, growing up with Debbie Love as your mom, obviously, so knowledgeable. I've had the pleasure of obviously meeting your mom multiple times. I've seen her teach. I guess perfectionist is probably a good word for her.
Some might say that. That's for sure.
And
she's a curious George. She just wants to know more about everything all the time.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And clearly it worked because, I know your brother, I know he cheered at the University of Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And then obviously you and your sister went on to cheer at Oklahoma State. And yes, obviously you're well known for your tumbling and your baskets and just your all around. But, kind of talk about, I guess, maybe the pressure or, having to grow up with a parent who was very knowledgeable about the sport, and very knowledgeable about that really specifically about tumbling, and kind of just talk about maybe the pressure, or maybe not, maybe you didn't have pressure, or maybe it was just awesome to have a mom that could really critique you and tell you how to get better.
I think that it was a little bit of everything. At first, when she started doing her research, and that's what she does. It's just researches. She didn't have like a tablet or an iPad, take on the airplanes or anything. So she would write down in notebooks everything that she would research or everything that she would think about. And I remember at the beginning, probably back in, I would say 2000 and maybe 2007, 2008. It could have been before then. I don't really know, but we would literally just fly places and help them with tumbling. And it was just a couple places at first, and people would want us out there, the gym owners would want us out there to see how we worked hard and stuff. But I think that it was the pressure more so. She didn't ever put pressure on us, because I think that especially Brittany and I are very stubborn and strong-willed and somewhat defiant at times. So for me, it's almost like I didn't believe her, anything that she said at first, which is bad. I questioned everything that she did. She would be sitting at home, researching at night on the computer. She'd be like, Whitney, will you try this for me really quick? And I'd be like, no, why? And I was not the tumbler that I was. This is earlier on. So when I was age 14 to 16, I was a brat. I completely did what I wanted to do. And even during that time, I tried to learn a standing double. I did it and I would fall. It was only one day. And my mom goes, Whitney, you're going to have to work hard and condition a lot for that. And I was like, I'll do that. I literally put it off. It wasn't the right time. And so I didn't work it again. And then we just questioned her all the time. And so I would get up and I would do whatever she wanted me to try. And I would always say it doesn't work, because I would probably give half my effort to it. And after I gave half the effort, then somehow miraculously within my tumbling in the next month or so, she would be able to insert, you can't do that because you didn't do this right. That exercise I had you do at the house, that's what you need to be doing in order to achieve this. And I was like, oh dang, she's right. And so there was a time where, it was right when I started working on the stand up for the second time, when I was like, all right, Mom, I'm ready. Tell me what you think I need to do, because I think it would be, honestly, it was like a game to me. And I said, let's see how far I can push myself. And I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of good friends, and I had a great environment that promoted just learning and let me do what I needed to do. A lot of gyms don't let their elite tumbler kids do the type of learning mechanisms or methods or techniques that really, really help them learn the best. And so I would go into the gym. Of course, we were homeschooled. So we would go to the gym about 2 p.m. and every other day, you know, it would switch back and forth, but I would either tumble for about an hour and a half or I would condition for about an hour and a half. And I started challenging myself with just drills and conditioning things, like all of these exercises. And I literally started getting better, like super quick, super fast. I didn't even know what to do with myself, honestly. It was so much fun. And I had already, you know, gone through that stage in my career where I almost lost my tumbling because I was growing and developing and everything. And so I was able to, you know, develop all of that strength to keep me going. But there was never any pressure. I think that it was a healthy challenge between, you know, all of us, with Brittany, myself, and my mom, because my mom was just trying stuff. It was all just learning. All of it was learning. Nothing was definite. She would just try it on us. We would tell her if it worked or not. If it did, she implemented it. If it didn't, she would give it, you know, a couple days, see if we were in a better mood the next time we try it and whatnot. And most of the time, actually every time it worked. Every single time that she tried anything with us, it worked. But it was definitely a process. I think the pressure more so came from myself, wanting to be the perfectionist, which I assume that I get it from my parents. Just the strive to always meet my expectation is really what it is, that I set this realistic expectation. You know, of course it's realistic. Like I remember thinking the goals to myself, surely I could do that. Like I could do that. And if I didn't achieve that, then that's when I would be like really, really frustrated, or feel really disappointed in myself. But as far as like competitions go, I think first day of all of my competitions, when I was throwing like front to whip double doubles and whip Arabian to double doubles, like in 2011 and 12, that's where my pressure came from. So if you look back on any of those competitions on day one, you'll see that I rarely throw my double, like a double double. I will always most likely do like a double punch full, or I'll kind of chicken out. And that's just because I was scared, or I didn't warm up properly, or I just didn't relax. And so as soon as I got through that first day, you know, the next day I was like on fire. But it was kind of a goal for me to be able to do things on all the days, anytime that I was able to. But the skills that I was doing at that time just required a lot of rhythm, not necessarily focus, but like if I wasn't feeling my standing double, I know I wasn't gonna land it. Because you know that was how familiar and experienced I was with what I was doing. It's not just like the mechanics of it will always work. It's if my body is able to do those mechanics every single time. And I don't know if it is or not. So I only competed a standing double once or twice, and I fell because I got too cold. And that skill is just very, very difficult to like warm up and then compete. Like it is so hard. I literally envy everybody that's able to do that. But at least I tried. I wanted to try, and that was a goal for me. But yeah, the pressure was more so just from myself and what I felt like back then my fans, you know, what or my followers wanted or expected of me. And I never wanted to disappoint. I wanted to be able to demonstrate what I worked so hard to do. And if I felt like I didn't meet that expectation, then I was disappointed.
For those of you joining us here, we are with Whitney Love, and she's talking about growing up with her mom and kind of the perfectionist that she became because of that. If you have any questions for Whitney, we're happy to answer later. Just tap on the question mark at the bottom and send us some questions. So you actually mentioned it, you know, that you were homeschooled. And so you actually didn't do school cheerleading. You only did All-Stars.
Yeah.
And so when looking at colleges, I mean, you had to know, like, man, I got to do this game day thing, right? And so, I mean, kind of talk about that experience of, well, first of all, your college journey. I'm quite sure any college would have loved to have had you. You had probably multiple options, and eventually, obviously, chose Oklahoma State, which is a great school. And Sally was actually my first ever guest on my show, and I love Sally. She's great. And I've had Leroy, and I had everybody, so they're great people. But kind of talk about the process of choosing college, you know, looking at college, which I think would be great advice for anybody right now that's watching this, maybe going through that right now, looking at colleges, and then kind of talk about learning game day.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So, okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm a very honest human. I did not care for game day cheerleading in college or in high school. My senior year of high school, that was not my priority. My priority at the time was to have a good super senior year and all-star. You know, finish what I started. My goal was to throw standing double at the competition. You know, maybe try and win worlds again. Now, I mean, stuff like that, or just really just experience the whole thing again. So as bad as it sounds, school wasn't my priority. And obviously my parents, they didn't force me to do anything, but they made sure that I knew that I had to go to school just in case, you know, if I pursued cheerleading as a career, like a coach or whatever, I have to have something to fall back on. Like, no matter what, it's not okay to not have anything to fall back on, whether you do a super senior year or you know, you go to college right now. You have to start eventually. You know, if you're not ready after your first year, that needs to be a goal for you. But yeah, at the time, my senior year, I did not even think about it, which is so crazy. And then I would say about January of my senior year in 2012, 11. Was it 11? Yeah, 11. So gym time, U of L cheer and whatnot, they're just like an hour down the road. So about in January, I would come to their practices at night. I would say like maybe once or twice a week, just to come and experience, tumble with the people. And I knew that if I was to do U of L, then I could definitely pursue All-Star as well with it, right? But for some reason, like, school was still not a priority for me. And I almost felt like it was too close to home, feeling like nothing would change. Like, not that I wasn't on my own, but I had been with my mom for so long, and I felt like I was ready to kind of, you know, she got to let me go so I can fly or try, you know, and experience. I had a lot to learn. And so at the time I was planning on going to U of L, and I was actually going to be on all girl because I was a base my last couple years of all-star cheerleading. So I was planning on going to all girl. I'd come to practices and stuff. And then around February, March, it was whenever NCAA All-Star was. My All-Star team I was on competed at it that year. And I met a friend that cheered at Oklahoma State. His name was Tucker Hunter. So he works for NCAA and stuff now. So this is in 2011. And for some reason, like, we were just texting, and he was like, "Have you ever thought of OSU?" And I was like, "The only OSU I know is Ohio State." Like, I don't, you know? And I was like, "No," but I'm not gonna lie, he definitely, I mean, he and I are best friends now. And so clearly we developed a good friendship. And I even, like, literally at Worlds, I went to Daytona that year. I went to Daytona for my senior year, and I actually went to watch U of L. I was there to support U of L, and then, you know, I wanted to kind of get a good feel. I was still uncertain. You know, tryouts are literally a month away. And I had no idea where I was going. I didn't have any plans. I'd gotten into one school. I had not even applied to anywhere else yet. And so I remember being in Daytona. OSU did not very well. Not very good that year. That was one of their struggle years. That was Tucker's first year, a bunch of my good friends' first year. And Louisville just had an incredible clean sweep. Like, that was their white year. Everybody won. And watching them was like a dream, honestly. In that routine, the large coed routine from that year for U of L is one of my favorite routines ever done. I think it's incredible. And, you know, at that point I was like, okay, yeah, no, I can go to Louisville. I'm feeling this. You know, I can do this. And then for some reason, the last night, like, Gio, I don't know if you know who Gio is, but Gio and Tucker invited me to go down to OSU. Always has like a little stunt session, just by themselves, you know, after the sun goes down or right as it is going down. And I did not want to stunt, not gonna lie, because I was a base. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't be a large coed flyer. Like, this is crazy. And later on, earlier in that day, Tucker introduced me to Leroy. And when I met Leroy, I was like, hey, I didn't know who he was at all. And, like, I didn't even know that he came from U of L. I had no idea that he and Misty and James best friends. And so Tucker was like, this is Whitney. She's kind of wanting to come here. And he was like, hey. And then his exact words were, you know, we'd love to have you. If not, we're going to be all right. But, you know, if you want to come and check it out, then we got a great thing to offer you. We'll take care of you. I think you're really talented, but do what's best for you. And then that night when we had the stunt session, it was just so fun and relaxed and chill and welcoming. And not gonna lie, that did it for me. Him not caring who I was or not knowing. I mean, maybe he knew who I was, but all he cared was that I was happy. And I could sense that. Whereas I felt at the time, other places, and not U of L, but the other colleges that were trying to pursue me were like, you know, we want you to be a part of this because of blah, blah, blah. Like if I came to U of L, it would have been the same way that Leroy responded to me. And that's awesome. And that's what kind of attracted me to both of them. But literally to my face, Leroy was like, if you come, perfect. If not, we're going to be fine. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm awesome. See you later.
Usually not the recruiting tactic most coaches would do, but
I know, exactly.
But
normally they make you feel wanted.
But obviously it worked for you. I mean, it worked for you, which was great.
Exactly what I needed. And if Louisville wasn't so close to home, I think I would have ended up, you know, coming here. But it would have been just the same thing. I was living at home the rest of my life, and I wanted to experience something new, or at least try. So I ended up going to OSU, moved to Stillwater. It was wild. I mean, I tried out. Oh my gosh, game day. So now we can get into the game day part.
Yeah, because I mean, OSU. I mean, it is big time. I mean, it is big time at OSU. I mean, Oklahoma State has great game day, great fans, rabid fans, and you're walking into Stillwater like you said, you really didn't care about game day, really didn't know it.
One college game. It was a U of L game here, like the year before, with my best friend Maddie, and that was the only thing I'd ever been to. I never even been to like a college basketball game, which is crazy because I'm from Lexington. But so at tryouts my first year, oh heavens, I remember that Friday before tryouts, I did a 2 to full on the floor for the first time. I still have the video somewhere. And it was like so good looking back at it. It was probably like one of the best ones I ever did. But I was like, oh gosh, this is weird. It was, you know, and then after on that night, they're like, you know, you're going to have to do a cheer. And I was like, oh gosh. How do I do? I don't even know. Like, I don't even know how I'm going to remember all this. And so at the clinic, they teach us the cheer. We have to use palms and a sign. So we're literally doing like our game day cheer that we would do at camp, you know, our 45-second. And so I'm like, let's go OSU. And I'm pretty sure I'm like the U. I can't remember. But I have these palms that I start, you know, clapping, trying to use them. And oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. So
I'm ready now.
I'm pretty sure that it was after the second day. So Anthony Reich and Tucker, you know, they all knew me. Bruno Tool was there. But really, I think it was Tucker and Colton and Anthony that I guess Leroy told to come up to me. And they're like, y'all need to fix her clap. She can't clap. And so I guess I'm like clapping with my arms like all the way down here. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just being sloppy for the most part. And then I have to do this sign, and so they're trying to teach me all this because Leroy definitely won't take you unless, like, you know, unless you check off every single box. There's no use for you. He didn't need me, so I had to make it seem like they needed me. And as far as game day went, they did not. And so after tryouts went, which I was freaking out. There's no other type of nerve for me than tryout nerves.
Interesting. Really?
Oh yeah, every tryout I just get so nervous. You know, the more I was experienced, like my first year on USA, super nervous. Second year, not as nervous, but like, holy crap, all of my OSU and then that first year on USA, I was like about to pee myself. I was so nervous. But so the first year I had to stunt, obviously. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a tumbler or if you're a top girl. You have to be able to do all this stuff. And the group of girls that I went with at that tryout were like bomb. Like, I mean, they were all older than me. It was one other like incoming rookie and myself with like 3 or 4 veterans. And like they were doing like for handspring, fly spring, front punch through to full step out, like whip Arabian to full step out. I mean, all of this stuff. And Carol, one of my friends, and I were just like, oh my gosh, we're not going to make it. Like, and both of us, she was on Twist and Shout the year before. She had at least cheered and like high school and stuff, but I'm like, okay, I just better make this pass good. I think I did a whip full through to full, which was pretty good. And then I did a 2 to full, but then that cheer came and I'm freaking out and I'm clapping all low and everything. And then after I had made the team, it was awesome. Leroy came up to me and he was like, your claps blow. I was like, I know, I don't know what to do. And he was like, you better work on them before you get back here next time. And I was like, okay. So I went home and I'm like doing all this claps, like perfect and whatnot. So, but you know, after that, and I experienced my first game day, like in the stadium. Oh gosh, that year was awesome for OSU too, because we went to the Fiesta Bowl. There you go. Yeah, there's Brittany and I. I think that was my 4th year with her.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. But yeah, my first year, it was, I remember our first game, we wore race car. It was like this really long, we called it race car, a long top. And it is hotter than all get out in Oklahoma. Like the turf was on fire. I mean, we were there just all day. But, you know, eventually cheering game day was my favorite aspect of my college in general. I mean, it was something that if I could go back and do one thing again, it would be cheer another game. Whether it was a loss or win, like that's what I want to be in my uniform, hearing on the fans. It was a true like definition of what a cheerleader is. I felt like, and I felt like I rocked it too. So I made it. It was like a game for me. I wanted to be the best game day cheerleader on the team. So if I left a game and, you know, well, if we didn't win, this doesn't apply. When we won, I made sure it was because of me. I told myself it was because of me. But yeah, those were my favorite memories. And, you know, just being able to be with the team. We were lucky. We were able to go on like team trips, and we had NCAA tournaments for men's and women's. We got, you know, we have wrestling and then basketball, football, all that stuff. So it was so much fun. And the environment at OSU is just like no one else. It's perfect.
I remember one year you guys took a trip to Purdue.
Yeah, I was there. I was on that trip.
Yes, you were. Was it for women's NCAA or was it for volleyball?
No, it was women's NCAA.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I remember that we hosted you guys. That was so much fun. I remember that. It was the first time I really got to meet you guys.
I went to some diner there and got a peanut butter burger.
the Triple X Diner.
Because I'm like a foodie. I love it.
It's like our famous on-campus eatery here at Purdue. Yes, and so I remember that. And yes, I just remember meeting you guys. You guys were so polite. It was so nice, and you guys worked so hard. I know you guys were still you're in Daytona mode because it was March and you're getting ready for Daytona, which I could just imagine. Which kind of segues into the next part. Talk about your first time at the band shell, first time competing college, at Oklahoma State.
Oh gosh, I could cry talking about this. So, during my first year, around October, I feel like I'm not alone I feel like a lot of freshmen probably feel this way or have felt this way. I wanted to leave. I was ready to move back home. I hated it. I hated being on my own. I felt like I was alone, and I was barely alone. You know, like my mom and sister, Brittany cheered on Twist and Shout with me. And so I didn't even stay a night in my dorm at all. I had an apartment because when they came to town, that's where we slept. You know, I was surrounded by people that were genuinely, they loved me, but I still felt like I was alone. I think that dealing with conflicts differently or just different personalities, I remember telling everybody at that point, I've never imagined so many different types of personalities ever, you know, that there could be any other types. Like it was like being surrounded by what I was just used to and familiar with, and Lexington or Kentucky in general. When I went to Oklahoma, it was like, whoa, okay, these are not the same type of kids. And I think it was because everybody's different, you know, and it was a great eye-opening experience for me because, and not that I thought that I was right or wrong or whatever. It was like, oh my gosh, it was just a lot of differences. And so around October through January, I was so ready to come home. I even begged my mom to let me stay home after Christmas. Like it wasn't for me. But I think that's all college. It was my first experience in school. Like my first test was an NACT was one of my first tests. So when I walked into like biology and algebra and like, you know, these college levels all at once in my first semester, it scared me to death. I remember I ran home crying. I skipped the class and ran home crying because I was so nervous. And I literally went to the, my advisor, like the next day, I was like, I can't handle all this right now. And luckily I was able and courageous enough to tell them that because it would have just drowned me. I would have spent the entire time there. But, you know, I didn't end up leaving, obviously, but my plan was to come back after Daytona that year. So I finished the year, and leading up to Daytona, you know, Twist and Shout, we found Obsession got our bid. You know, things started getting a little bit better, but on the OSU side of it, we were going through like Heaven Week, our spring break practices 2 days and stuff. And I was just like nonstop cheer. And I loved it. It was a great distraction for me. I had a calendar that, every weekend I would like X one weekend closer to being able to leave. Like if you're watching and you did that in college, you're not alone. I did that too.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to get out of there. And then spring break practices came around, and we always do some traditions and stuff with Large Coed that have been, in our family forever. So that's where our acronym, our PUCG family, comes from. And I was able to participate in a lot of these team events where they're bonding. It's all bonding. And I got to understand a lot more background to the family that I was, hopefully going to be invited into. And at OSU, if you're not PUCG, then it's a difficult decision for them to decide if you'll compete. They want it. In order for a team to be successful, you have to have one common goal and you have to come together.
Mm-hmm.
If there are people off the island, on their own island, then it's not going to work. And so, luckily they thought I was worthy of being those letters, because I was a butt. I literally hated it. I wanted to go. And I regret a lot of that, because it was just me being really immature and scared for the most part of becoming something. I was scared to lose the all-star aspect of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like my identity a lot at that point was an all-star. And it was, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So spring break is here, and we have just like one or two more like little team events. And I remember leaving one of them, and I looked at my friend Colton. I said, "Dang it, I like it here." And he was like, "Me too."
Well, good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And so I feel like the rest of my time, it was still kind of like, it was up in the air as to whether or not I was going to continue the next year or not. At that point, I just thought, okay, or college cheerleading just wasn't for me. And that happens to some people, but
mm-hmm.
I also know that I didn't really give it an actual opportunity, for it to be what I love to do, for me to fall in love with it. I was not wanting to fall in love with it. Therefore, I was incapable of falling in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go to Daytona, and oh gosh. And so everything just starts. I mean, you just go once you get there. You practice. And first day, oh gosh, in the Ocean Center, I was peeing myself again. Obviously. And I'm in like this, our team stunt are full up, hill stretch, full down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's stunt. I'm freaking out. And luckily Leroy put me with Gio, who's super, advanced and elite and experienced. And he was like, I knew you were going to probably try to fall. And I'm like, you guessed it right, because I tried. And, he kept me up there and stuff. But day one, we hit both days. We had little bobbles and whatnot. But we were in first, I believe, going into day two, which day two is when you compete on the band shell. And my goodness, I get chills like thinking about it. I mean, day one is something, but day on the band shell is unlike any other environment. It is my favorite environment to cheer in. I am one that loves to see people. So the Ocean Center for me, or like NCAA All-Star, it's scary because it's just dark. Everything is dark. And that is what I really, really don't like in a performance arena. So the band shell was perfect. And I just remember I was again peeing myself because I was nervous. But I trusted everybody on the team. We all trusted each other, and that common trust in each other, that can build anything, that can build trust in someone else that isn't experiencing it at that moment. And so I went out there, and we all when we went out, that's you, and I saw I'm gonna cry, like the whole crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And right at that moment, I knew that I wasn't gonna leave.
Yeah. We're here with Whitney Love, and if you have any questions here, if you please tap on the question mark at the bottom. I'm giving her a second here to compose herself, because she just literally is getting tears thinking about the band shell, which is awesome. I
love OSU more than anything. So.
And if you have any questions, tap on the question mark at the bottom and send us some questions here. We're happy to answer them here in about 10, 15 minutes. So obviously at OSU, as you talked about, extremely successful. Lots of bling that you won at OSU.
There's a few missing, but that's what I got right now, I think.
And you know, as you talked about, you know, you had the great Leroy McCullough as your coach for both, you know, at Oklahoma State and at US Coed team. And so that's the next thing I want to talk about then. And we talked about, you were one of my guests on our Coach's Corner for the USA Coed, which is awesome. But talk about the experience of being on the US National Coed team and the tryouts and just the pressure, but obviously the opportunity to represent your country.
Yeah, so it took me a while to, I think, get the nerve or the confidence to go and try out. You know, I was a tumbler, and at that time, if I was going to do it, I wanted to be on co-ed. And so I feel like I had to get a little bit better at studying or a little bit more advanced. Looking back, I should have just tried earlier, just went and tried, because I wish that I could have more years of that experience. And I'm lucky to have had 4 years of, you know, different experiences and like going overseas and stuff. But I hate that phone's ringing.
That's all right. She's in the office right now, everybody. So hey, this is a live show, and that's what you deal with.
Yep. So I decided, I'm like, all right, my 5th year at OSU, I did 5 years because that's the max amount of years you can do in college. And I wanted to use every bit of my college opportunity because I was not going to leave that school and still have more years of doing it. I wanted it to take all of me, basically. And so it was my 5th year in college. I was like, all right, I'm doing it. I'm ready. Let's go. And school wasn't always like a really, it was not easy for me. School was a challenge for me to continue to keep up with tasks and stuff. So I also didn't want to do USA unless I could balance everything the way that I feel like I would be expected to do it, or I would expect myself to balance. So,
real quick, could you just talk about just kind of, like I said, like, a lot of people probably don't know, but you were homeschooled your whole life, you know, and then, and like you talked about, your first real test was in college, which I couldn't even imagine. How difficult was the transition going from, being homeschooled into a very structured, obviously a big university that's very academically driven?
Yeah. So the only structure I knew prior to college was wake up, do my homeschooling stuff, get food for lunch, go to the gym till 9-10 p.m., go home, do it again. Over and over and over again. And my mom is a genius. She's a math major, psychology and English minor. So she used to be a teacher. She used to be an 8th grade math teacher. But I feel like that was the only structure. That was the only schedule routine that I knew. And I'd been doing that for almost 18 years at that point. It was everything. And it was easy, it was familiar, and it was safe. So when I got to college, that scheduling was eye-opening, to say the least. I think that I easily become overwhelmed, and if I take on too much at once, then I'm a people pleaser. Almost everybody is in the world, but not only for other people, but for myself, my expectations. Not really even my mom. My mom and dad are they're literally the most kind, genuine, the sweetest humans, and so they just want us to be happy no matter what. And so it was, at OSU, you have to keep up with a grade point average. And it's not anything excessive or whatnot, but I was legitimately nervous that I was not going to grade in order to compete. And I felt like that was what I kept telling myself that I was going to do if I did not balance all this well. And plus cheering and stuff, we practice 3 days a week. Then we have workouts the other 2 days. Plus, we're doing men's and women's basketball at that time, plus wrestling, plus I was on Twist and Shout. So, looking back, it is insane, totally insane. Orson at that point gave me a key to get into Twist and Shout just so I could go and tumble when I felt like I needed to, because I know that literally, or he knew that it was going to be whenever I could. It was typically on a Friday afternoon, and I had to go and keep up my skills outside of being in practice just like everybody else. So that scheduling was definitely tough. It did get easier for me. I started to know my boundaries and my limitations as far as what I could handle on my plate. But also I started to, I had to start adding other things like a job. Started coaching. I started doing privates. You start working at gyms, or, I coached Stillwater High School cheer for
Mm-hmm.
about 6 or 7 years. And Carolyn, the coach of that, is just like, one of the lifesavers that I feel like God blessed me with, because without her, she always was there in person. She was like my mom away from home, but also my best friend. And I was alone, especially my sophomore and junior year, because my mom and Brittany weren't there then. That was
Mm-hmm.
just my first year. And I feel like my junior year is probably when I started getting into health promotion classes a little bit more so than just the gen ed. But it got a little bit harder because I was doing those plus the gen eds. And so you kind of start figuring out what works for you and what all you can take. And honestly, I couldn't take more than 12 hours. I took 15 hours one semester, and it about killed me just because I was doing so much. And so luckily I can cheer for 5 years because
Mm-hmm.
I took my time and I did it exactly how I felt like it would work best for me. If I had to take something off my plate, I did. And it sucked because I did not like disappointing myself or feeling like I disappointed other people, but I definitely had to keep my priorities straight.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of it. And I think Leroy actually was one that told me, because my first year was his last year coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's a mentor for sure for me. And so whenever he would check in, he'd be like, "Hey, how's school?" And I'd be like, "It's going." And he
Mm-hmm.
said, he was like, someone told me once that if you think of it as a job and you do all of your schoolwork, so from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever, if you focus on school at that point, then you don't have to do any of it at night. And that was like a huge bit of advice that helped me, because that is what I eventually started doing. Or I could do whatever I needed to during the morning, afternoon, and just focus on school from 6 to whenever at night.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was definitely a challenge. But at OSU, there is nothing but like help there. I got a facilitator after my first year, which I didn't even know. I guess I didn't listen when they told us, which I should have listened.
No, from personal experience as a college coach, freshmen don't listen at all. Don't worry.
At all. You should. All of your freshmen coming in, you should definitely listen and take notes on everything. But I didn't know that I could get I knew I could get tutoring, but the facilitator that I got, and or maybe I just didn't know what it was at that point, but she kept me on track. And for the rest of my 4 years, her name was Emily, but she became someone that was super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely couldn't have done it. Even if I would just go in and check in with her, just be like, hey, she'd ask me what I have going on. And that was enough for me to just voice it out loud instead of, keeping it all inside. But it's not easy, but it does get easier. I don't know if it ever becomes easy, or it didn't for me. I do know people that it's easy for,
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome. Super happy for them. But for me, it didn't. Luckily, the cheerleading aspect of it, I was able to keep up with all my skills and stuff. One of my goals in cheerleading for college was to never lose a skill, and I never did.
Mm-hmm.
I never set out for an injury ever, and kept all of my skills. It was almost like the roles were reversed, for most freshmen for me. So
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting.
Which, obviously staying healthy, and we kind of talked about it in our episode before, the grind of doing NCAA and then doing the US National Team.
Yes.
And so obviously, trying to stay healthy for the US National Team was something that, is something that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of talk about, that experience of having Leroy again as your coach, but then, again, representing your country.
Yeah. So my 5th year, I graduated, or I'm graduating. And that year in Daytona, we actually didn't win. My pyramid fell that year. And I was like, oh gosh, I could, that's a whole situation in itself. But, just a point of growth. But I was so excited to, look forward to USA. I remember seeing Leroy in between Daytona and USA. And I just literally, I held back all of the tears and everything, throughout the whole losing experience. And I had to take a different perspective about it, or with it. But when I saw Leroy in between that, I just broke down,
Mm-hmm. And
he was like, listen, don't cry. You're fine. You've got another opportunity. USA is going to be another opportunity. You're going to make up for all of it. You'll be able to prove to yourself that, you are a winner. You work hard, and this doesn't define you. And so going into USA was kind of like, I was super eager, very new, obviously, you know, and my friends that I cheered with at OSU were also on the team, but they had been on the team, like John and Tucker and who else was on it then? There were a lot of people that had been on that USA. And so I was so out of my element, and at tryouts, I was like, whoa, there are so many good people here. Like it had been forever since I was like in an actual environment that people, like maybe not threatened me, but intimidated me a little bit. I was like, oh gosh, if I don't land this, like they're definitely going to know. And I thought that maybe tryouts would be like super, personal and individualized, but the coaches and USA Coed National, they do an incredible job at making it the most comfortable situation that it can be. Comfortable yet challenging. That you, like for me personally, I'd been coached by Leroy, but I wanted to make him proud. And there was no guarantee at that point that I would have made the team, you know, and none of us knew. The team starts over every single year. And that's how it was at OSU. So luckily I was able to have that perspective already. And I was just freaking out during tryouts. And they asked to see certain stunts and stuff. And there are a lot of good people. And, you know, after I tried out, I had a good tryout. It was actually really good, I think. They put up, you know, who made it and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, what do I'm on this team with so many people. So, you know, when I saw Leroy in between Daytona and NCA, he was like, it's gonna be a great experience for you. You know, just give it your all. Don't worry about this right now. You got to move on. And so I got to the USA training, and it was literally like I didn't know anybody I was roommates with. I hardly knew any of the people that were there. I didn't know who Krista was at the time, which is crazy. I should have. But Allie was luckily a coach, and she was a cheerleader at UK whenever I was growing up. And then I knew Leroy. But it was such a new experience for me. But like at practices, the first practice, they were like, okay, let's see show us what you can do, you know, and Leroy kind of talked about it on the little podcast that we did, but they take a little bit more of a different approach. Whereas back then they would just like call out skills and they would ask to see how many that we have. And I remember they asked to see a straddle full basket. And I had done pike open doubles or even 1.5s, but single spinning baskets was not something I had successfully managed to complete. And so I did it, or maybe I just did a straddle back, a straight one, and they're like, okay, we need everybody to spin to the left. And I was like, I'm all right. This is not a pull down for me. This is an actual spin. And they want us to do it with palms. And so the first one I did to the left, I mean, it was fine, but I was seriously going to the opposite side. So I remember one morning we were doing, you know, our cheer, which the cheer practice is always the lengthiest. And one time, it was really early that we were working on the cheer. We did it in the cheer. And I was like, USA, you know, red, white, blue. So when we do the straddle full, I go to the right and I do a straddle 1.5 to basically my face. And it was like wild. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like overloaded with a lot of stuff but it was so much fun because you spend such a short amount of time together. But those, what we call super friends, you know, a lot of them become your best friends. Like, I don't know where I would be without USA. It was the best cheerleading experience I'd ever had, ever in my life. And it's something that I wish I could relive every single day. And that first year we were just like on fire, you know, like they were coming back from a challenging year before. I was coming off of Daytona, which was challenging. I just feel like I learned so much as far as being a team goes, or even really that year was me personally, how I could, you know, dictate my own success, you know, not just the team, but my success was something that the team needed. And if I focused on just me, and I was able to just focus on me because I was just a first year again, it made a world of a difference. And it kind of made me fall in love with cheerleading again, for sure. So I didn't even stay for Worlds that year. That's all I did. I competed one day, came back, you know, and we hit one of the most incredible routines I think that is ever done in cheerleading. So, but the next year was my second year on it. and it was super fun. I think that I got better. Like USA made me want to keep getting better. And then my first year, like not being a part of OSU and doing anything. And my second year on USA, we competed 2 days in a row for the first time. And it was awesome. I mean, that year was brutal training, because the things we were doing they were the highest. We threw skills that teams have not ever competed, in a routine for the first time. And that the team as a whole was so incredibly talented, and we worked very well together. But because it was more challenging and difficult skills, it required a lot more focus and training. We did. I mean, training was just, we're lucky that, Leroy gave us the night off. Like, the coaches gave us the night off after day one. Luckily, we hit a really great routine for the most part after day one, because we were like, you know what, we want to take a break. Let's have fun. Let's do this routine right now. And he told us he would reward us. And so he did. And we were able to take the night off. But yeah, we were all sore. All of us were really sore. But that's a part of it. The USA experience makes you sore enough and challenges you just enough so that you keep getting better, that you don't take any steps backwards. And there's such a fine line as far as coaching goes, and leading a team like us, teammates, and being a team, like your team camaraderie and your work ethic and your ability, your endurance, to just put that effort again and again and again and again. That year definitely challenged us, but they are incredible coaches. And as much as people say it was brutal, it was brutal, but I would go back every second of the day right now. Like, I wish I was there right now. It was just that great of an experience. So it's awesome.
So we have about 9 minutes. Instagram Live kicks you off at 1 hour. So we have about 9 minutes here. It's been a great talk here with Whitney Love. I have a couple more questions for you, and we'll wrap up. So one thing, that some programs are going through right now, I had a great conversation with Ryan O'Connor and Jalen Davis, and taking over programs. And you had mentioned that you had Leroy recruited you. You went to Oklahoma State, and then after his first year, life changes things, and you get a new coach. I mean, talk about your experience of having to, have a new coach, and the pressures of that, and just kind of, having Sally as your coach at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, so, the first year with Leroy was great. We won. He was able to leave, and we were all super happy that he felt like it was the right time for him to pursue a different journey. I think that's always a really tough thing to do as a cheerleading coach. And now that I've become a coach, like, it is something that is very difficult to do. And you kind of have to, like, have the right timing for it. It's just, as coaches, we're never satisfied with the outcome. We always look forward to what we can do next after you've accomplished one thing. So we all knew it was going to be Leroy's last year, because the year before that, the year before my freshman year, he actually was supposed to leave. So he came back for another try. I'm thankful that he did, so I could experience it. But so we knew it was going to happen. When we got back, I remember we all, like, everybody got a text to meet at a certain place, because the new coach was going to be, voiced. We were going to find out. And so we all of, everybody met there, and they told us, and I knew Sally. So Sally was on Passion, and obviously she's my alumni. So I knew, I didn't know her very well, but I obviously knew her. But I think that it was, whenever they told us, it was very refreshing to, one, have an alumni, come and help us, someone who knew the ins and outs of everything. And Sally was on small co-ed, she was on large co-ed. Like, she really had her fair share of experiences to know the pros, maybe the cons, what she felt like she needed to do different than what it was, or what her focus was, and leading us as far as the team goes. So I was super excited, and I'm really eager, to have someone that everybody trusted. And along with that, which I can't remember if Brenna did assistant coach that first year, I believe. Maybe she didn't, but Brenna O'Toole ended up being an assistant coach with her, which Brenna's one of my best friends. She was a captain my first year. And so it was awesome to just have two, I feel like, females that were very, very respectful and knowledgeable, of course, right? Talented. They've achieved so much success, but also just them being able to say that they've experienced the same type of stuff that you have. I think that that is something that it goes a very long way, just making kids feel like they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though my situation with school and then, you know, with my keeping up with my skills, it was different than others. It wasn't like it hadn't been done before. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, I wanted to leave in the middle of the season. It's not like nobody else hadn't wanted to leave. And so they were able to understand and provide a different perspective on things, on everything, which really helped me grow as an athlete and most definitely as a leader. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is where I was really able to form into the leader that I was. So.
All right, real quick, we had a couple of questions. One was from actually Lee Trudell, my guest last week, and just, you know, one piece of advice you have for types of mental blocks. You know, tumbling mental blocks happens all the time. I mean, anything that you could, you know, obviously your mom I know has written many things about mental blocks, but no matter how good you are, sometimes it happens. I mean, anything that you can tell anybody out there that maybe has a mental block right now in tumbling.
Yeah. Well, I think one, make sure they feel and know that they're not alone. I've had it too. Anytime I had multiple tests during college, that week I would block on something. So I just had a clear communication with Sally and told her when I was feeling stressed and overworked and too much on my plate, because I would simplify and modify my tumbling accordingly. Also go to fortheloveoftumbling.com or type in Breaking Free by W Love. My mom has an entire template. Really, it's like a document, all of her research and 9 steps to overcoming a mental block. Mm-hmm. That would be my best advice. It would take too long to go over them, but mm-hmm. for the love of
tumbling.com, go to it. I've been to that website, yes, and I know exactly the article you're talking about. So yes, mm-hmm. Anything for mental blocks, definitely go to it. It's a great research. And then we had one last question from Allie. Do you have that standing double? Can we see it? Is it still available?
Okay, so the standing double on the floor, she left like years ago. But because I don't have time to keep up with all of it anymore. But if you go to my profile, you can see the most recent video that I did off of a panel mat into a resi. That is the first one I've done in probably 8 years. Long time, 7, 8 years. Yeah, I don't do them on the floor. I'd probably land on my head. So not gonna do that. But yeah, sometimes I get a little bit eager. I'll be like, I feel like I could do this today. And a couple of the girls here, they're the same way. So we all 3 tried in one night. It was awesome, but very difficult still. So yeah, it humbles me really quick.
Well, before we let you go, we have a couple minutes left. One thing. Well, first of all, what are you doing today? What is the life today for Whitney Love?
Today, well, I got up, walked the dogs, drove to the gym, an hour to the gym, got on here. Now I have some private lessons before I coach my junior 5 team. And then after that, I'll stay and work with the level 6 teams after that. And then I just drive an hour home. So
you're driving from Lexington to Louisville and working at gym time?
Yep.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I'm excited to see how your teams do this year. And hopefully we have a season with everything, obviously, that's going on. But
I hope so.
But the last question I always like to ask everybody is, what's one piece of advice that you received that sticks with you today and now as a coach is something that you live by that you got as an athlete that you would still use today as a coach?
One time I was being maybe a butthole on too obsession with my teammates, and we were working on pyramids and I was getting frustrated, you know, and I probably was saying a little bit.
You have 90 seconds, Whit. You have 90 seconds.
So Orson came up to me and he said, as a teammate, your job and only job is to encourage. And it is your coach's job to critique. So let me critique and you encourage. That's really
Preach.
Yeah, that's it. Like my job. And that changed my entire perspective on being a teammate and a coach. Yeah.
That is such great advice. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Whitney, this was awesome. I'm quite sure I'll have you as a guest again someday. But your story was awesome. Thank you for sharing it today. It was awesome. And I'm quite sure our paths will cross again soon.
I hope so. Thank you for having me. I love talking. So this is
awesome. Thanks, Whit. Have a great day.
Thanks.
That was Whitney Love. just a sweet, sweet, sweet person. So knowledgeable. Obviously has accomplished so much in this industry. Was a great interview. It'll be on our YouTube. It'll also be a podcast sometime next week. So if you are looking for taking any road trips and want something to listen to, you can listen to this again later as a podcast. Tomorrow, Coach's Corner live on YouTube. We are going to the college dance world. Yes, college dance. I am bringing in the coaches from The Ohio State, University of Minnesota, University of Michigan, and University of Iowa. Coach's Corner, college dance episode tomorrow, live on my YouTube. So again, special thank you to Whitney Love for sharing her story. Stay healthy, stay safe. Have a great day.